Hey guys, welcome to Masters in E-commerce and for Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Andrew Strauss, and I'm joined here with Dustin Dye and of Botcopy, the CEO of Botcopy, really doing some really cool, interesting stuff. He was worked over at Expert Dojo before, helping startups in that space, mentoring and walking them through and how to succeed over there, and led to his sort of foray into AI and bots, getting hooked up with some of those companies in there, and led to him helping with a company called Doc and Swelly grow pretty massive, I guess, on where they are. And so we're in for a real treat because we're going to talk to Dustin about that, his experience, and where the bot industry is going, AI, all that kind of stuff. And if I left anything out, Dustin, please fill it in.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. We'll go from there.
Okay, cool. So anyway, so today what I wanted to really talk to, what we want to kind of find out a little bit is about is like, so you've been in the space for how long now, would you say?
So in the startup space, about 4 or 5 years, okay. Particularly in AI and these chatbots, about 1.5 years, coming up on 2 years.
Okay.
I think so. October.
Okay, cool. So in terms of this, like now you work with two sort of companies right now, right? Mm-hmm. Doc and Swelly. What was the idea and the premise behind those types of apps? Because I played around with them, but or messengering kind of things. Like what was the premise behind those?
So there's 2 things. We've got a handful of corporate clients that the premise is more, FAQs and customer service to even. We've slowly been building in some HR and things like that as far as like the chat functionality. Because when we came in and we first started, it was just for fun. I was good friends with Peter, CEO of Swell, and he came through Expert Dojo, the accelerator here in Santa Monica that I'm affiliated with. And I noticed there was like a few things that we could change within their copywriting on the languages of bots that I just wanted to give my best shot at. And Peter's a good friend of mine. So I sat down with actually Fred, his other co-founder, and got to just rewrite, a script that was more fitting, in my opinion, for their demographic, which was primarily 18 to 25-year-old females at the time. Mm-hmm. And just gave it a little more pizzazz and cute personality, and gave their a whale a fun brandable presence. Right. And they A/B and tested it, and immediately they had just phenomenal feedback from it. And they were already growing pretty quickly, but then afterwards their retention and their growth, started to increase more and more. So they've made a handful of changes since that beginning onboarding experience that we took a look at, but it was that really sparked the interest that, oh, wow, copywriting and UX and all this stuff has such a big play into these conversations and how to do it, that let's start there and figure it out. And from there, I looked at some of the other startup companies in the area, which was Doc. And Doc is a parking bot. It helps you find parking. So we're integrating with Google Maps and Alexa and all the smart home features pretty soon. So before you know it, you're going to be able to talk to your car and tell it where to park.
Wow.
Which will be cool. And we saw in the beginning, before we had worked with them, they had a pretty slick app. But when you're parking, it's a pretty quick experience. Like you want shit and you want it quick. You want to get to your parking lot, and if you don't have an app, the last thing you want to do is download an app to figure out how to park. So we were able to cut that onboarding experience just through Facebook Messenger from I think we recorded it at like 9.5 minutes to download the Find app, parking with the app to 25 seconds.
Wow. Okay.
So
That's pretty
that was
big.
the first, like, okay, we might be onto something. What else can we automate and curate in this experience? So then we looked at owners, and now owners can walk out of their home with their smart home, and their driveway starts making them money.
Right.
So they can just say, open the spot, I'm going to work. And then when they get back, they can say close spot. They get notifications that people parked, and the bot automatically transfers them money afterwards. So it was just all around a cool, more forward-thinking, Emily's the CEO there, project that, I wanted to take our creative writing team and see what we could do. Because the app was, the idea, I've heard it several times before, like people coming up with a startup for parking. It's not the first person on the block to do that, but Emily's she's pretty savvy and really wanted to invest into AI and machine learning. And I thought doing that and looking at the future of like autonomous cars and things where you could just tell the car to go dock itself.
Right.
Would be a cool experience. So that was, we saw the idea, we saw the vision, and that AI could really, help that, product. And it wasn't a, Fortune 500, company where the copy was pretty technical and straightforward and bland. And if they ask about product Z, give this description and then dish them there. So it was just an exciting startup project to help out with. And, so it was one of the first two that we really took on in the very beginning, about a year, coming up on a year now,
Okay.
Our whole shebang over.
Right. So do you find, like, in terms of, because obviously it's a Botcopy, do you find that is the key to success with any sort of messaging AI kind of experience for the user?
The conversation, the copy itself?
Yeah, the conversation. So like you said that you took on the pre-existing copy and then made it fun, right? I mean, is it just that making it snappy, or like what is that makes the experience?
There's two things. It's one, like I think over the past like 5 to 10 years, like traditional copywriters that are hired to write web content are the copy style is supposed to be pretty bland and straightforward, because that's what is shown. Like if you make it super obvious, people are going to click this button at a higher rate than if you make it like super branded and funky, or try to make a style for that. And that whole theory kind of changes when it's in like a personal messaging space and it's like a one-on-one conversation where the context isn't like read all about this in their way in this linear pattern like you see on a website, or however you want to navigate it. It's like you can chat with it. So we've seen some really cool conversion rates and retentions by adding specific personality types and giving it a little bit of flavor, nothing over the top, but giving it some personality works,
right,
for the most part. And sometimes that personality, depending on the brand and who you're chatting with, is bland. Like it is, we look at Alexa and we say, Alexa's this, she's not like sexy or, super outside the box or nice. She's kind of this like punchy, like techie, cool mixture. But if you write in her language and her style, it actually is very like, it's a nice conversation to have. You just need to understand like how people with that personality typically talk, and then you can go forward with that.
Would you do that? So in terms of like the stuff that gets those users to interact with them, or like what type, I mean, I guess it's just a case by case of how they interact with like the brand itself, I guess. Is that kind of, you can't just write like fun, punchy copy for everybody. It might be more serious.
Yeah, totally. And you can't just focus on the copy. There's a whole like UX behind it, you know, and almost every week they're coming out with some new, like, fun stuff to play around with, whether that's like AR experiences within the conversation or images or videos. Like, these are all very important and part of the conversation. You know, just the microcopier things to deliver it there are still really crucial, but you got to play around and understand the experience in the whole.
Right.
One thing that we really see people get in trouble with in the space is not having kind of a backbone for the conversation. Understanding like where you, like what the business, you know, what their objectives are and how to get people there. And if they go outside of there, how to get them back. And there was a recent article on like VentureBeat about how NLP doesn't work. I don't agree with it doesn't work.
Right.
I think buttons in the beginning to get people to where you want to go, and the first time users to help them understand and create that journey and path are crucial.
Right.
But implementing the right NLP to help coincide with that and make it a cohesive experience. So having both and building NLP based on demand and not just like cool product ideas. You know, I think that's something that isn't new to any business over the past 100 years, is build based on, you know, feedback and demand, and pivot your company into the direction that, you know, people are essentially paying for, instead of cool ideas. And we've seen a lot of companies just get carried away with these conversations and what the AI can potentially do, and all of a sudden the maps just get way outrageous, and it ends up being a useless tool that like people start chatting with it about beer and it sells like movie tickets. You know, it's like, fuck, you know, where do you really go?
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that's kind of the thing. I think that, you know, ideas can be thrown into this conversation, and you want to have like multiple things, but you're right. I think that if the brand or what they're trying to accomplish, their end goal in mind, working backwards is probably the smarter way to go about creating the conversations, would you say?
Yeah, totally. I don't know if you've read, I published an article about our theory that we practice here at Botcopy. We call it cut theory. It can really be any acronym, but we use checkpoints, which traditionally we look at as far as like a y-axis.
Right.
So checkpoints would tie closely to the business's KPI, so what they're trying to achieve, and understanding. I think in that article I used a banking analogy, where if you're a bank, you know, you're going to hire us or someone else for the bot to do some specific tasks. You know, not tell people where the local zoo is. You know, you want banking tasks, and those tasks, you know, and simply like maybe they forgot their password, their credit card is scratched and they can't use it, you know. And what we've seen, a lot of the tasks kind of are aligned with what they spend a lot of time repetitively on, like call centers and things like that have like they spend hours on. We added it up with one of our clients, and they're spending over, you know, $3 million annually just figuring out scratch like card issues. So, you know, those kind of entry points, and we consider those checkpoints. So, okay, that's checkpoint one. The checkpoint two could be they want to check on a transfer if it's a bank, like so transfer activities.
Right.
And there's not necessarily a linear pattern to how the checkpoints go. They're just like understanding that they came into this part of the conversation. You know, the same thing if you're a gamer or something and you're playing some game and it's a choose your own destiny, right? You know, and you choose to go on this one storyline. Well, you enter that checkpoint essentially. You can go back to the other storylines and have those conversations, but that's that. And then in those checkpoints, if you look at like an x-axis, we have understanding logic. So within your card being scratched, what about that card is scratched? What type of card is it? Is it a debit card? Where are you located so we can send you a new one? Those are all things that we understand about the user. that start to create this kind of like what we call like a conversational code. So if there's like, if a debit card is understanding 1 and a credit card is understanding 2 and the scratch card issue is a checkpoint 1, and user comes in and says, hey, I've had a problem. My credit card is scratched and I need a new one. Well, it would recognize that, credit card is scratched, so it'd be C1, and it's a credit card, so it'd be C1, U2.
Right.
And that code over time gives us so much information about where users go, what's like a really common pattern, how they communicate with us, which allows us, instead of thinking in like a grand scope in the very beginning, to kind of build based on those patterns that we start to recognize.
Right. So a lot of the times you're building more on that MVP kind of stuff, right? When you're starting, and then you keep adding to those feature types of things, pretty much.
We've seen the most success there. Well, it is fun, like getting like massive projects to kind of just go crazy on. I just think it's best practice to, take it like a natural conversation. You wouldn't walk up to someone at a bar that you're trying to meet and just open up with like your whole life story.
I want to have a kid. I'm like, yes, I want to think a big house on the range. Yeah.
Really, really, really good guy. Got a brother, a sister. You should meet my mom.
Oh, she's right here.
Checkpoint 7. Mom.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. There you go.
Let's FaceTime her now.
Yeah, right. Here's the marriage counselor outside. So that's really interesting, because I think you're right on that at that point where people tend to, like, I mean, if you've seen like many chats or all these kinds of things, I mean, those flows that people are building, the logic isn't smart inside of those things. I mean, usually they're there to just sell, right? I mean, it's just really like, hey, ask these few questions and moving to sell. I think you're right. I think you've got to warm that relationship up with like anything else, and asking those sorts of types of questions and getting those people in there. Now, have you seen like in terms of things of like where so you were saying stuff on like the HR side of things. I mean, do you see that becoming more and more where people are going to be like using these to sort of screen and do like the chats themselves as like higher HR first line of defense?
Yeah, so it's funny that you asked that. So yesterday I had a few of our interns, because they're all graduating from USC, and they're working. They were like asking me to like look at their resume and things like that and give them some feedback. It sparked this like really interesting idea, because they were cool resumes, like a little different than the resumes that I used to have, just a little more graphical and things like that. So I was like, what would be really interesting is if we created a resume for our bot and started submitting it to all the HR and jobs on Indeed and Monster, and tell them just like, hire this time instead. So I think so. I think that it is coming. I see the use case. I mean, it would work off of like a trigger-based system. So basically, let's, in an HR perspective, new hire comes in.
Right.
You hire Johnny Smith, and he comes in and his account is created in the corporate structure, and that pings the system, and it pings the system that Johnny is new and he needs to get his insurance. He needs to get X, Y, and Z. All sends him a note. Hey, Johnny, welcome to the team. We look forward to having you. If we could collect this file, we'll get your insurance, your salary, and all this other stuff, linked up. If you have any questions, just shoot here. And I think those simple use cases, again, it's like really repetitive tasks that can be trigger based.
Right.
That would make the most sense. Nothing like, you're having a difficult time, you're not showing up to work, you've had a life like crisis, go ahead and talk to our HR bot, and it should do the trick.
Right.
That hasn't gone there yet. You really need that human touch to help some people out. But then again, like those, these kind of tools also help people in the HR department. you know?
Right.
So if there is something that helps facilitate, I mean, if you have 1,000 employees or 10,000 employees, and you're getting all these new things a day, or new employees a day, and these are all this automation is being sent out, instead of sending it all out and just like maybe each individual email, you can oversee, you know, 50 to 60 at once and make sure that there isn't any problems, or see that one or two people are having, you know, problems, and you could just give them a call, things like that. So
right.
there will always be like typically when we're building, we look at it like, okay, this is going to be, in the beginning, it's going to be 30% of what you've hired of us is going to work. The bot is going to be able to handle it. The other 70% is going to be dished over to maybe a live agent or ping to someone that can look at it, teach it how to fix it in the future because it doesn't understand the problem at hand, and then move from there. And then move that pendulum forward so it becomes 40-60, becomes 50-50, and then, you know, the bot gets smarter and smarter.
Right. Now, how do you see it in e-commerce? I mean, what use cases do you see sort of in an e-commerce perspective?
E-commerce is interesting. You know, there's a few different perspectives. We're working with a company right now called True Package that we're helping on the logistics standpoint. So it's a way for to get the best deal on packaging products and not like shipping them, but at least the packaging materials.
Okay.
And I think that is one of the biggest. Not packaging itself, but having the bot like recognize like purchasing habits, recognizing trends, patterns, what people are doing in specific areas. And I think that's really important, like in specific geolocated areas. Like with Swelly, they're able to tell you what's trending in like specific cities. So having like, if you can imagine having Swelly within your company and it says, hey, you know, here's what you should order next month based on this demand. Now Swelly then would communicate with something like True Package, and it would say, in order to get this done at the best price, here's your packaging price, and then like logistically it would get there. So just handling, I think supply chain management would be, you know, first step.
Right.
Having a chatbot on the e-commerce site to sell products and get people down into like an email marketing, traditionally an email marketing campaign, but now it's like an SMS campaign is pretty powerful as well. You know, telling them about these trends, like walking them through that. Right. And with AR experiences on top of that, like I think if you were chatting with the bot, you were like, hey, I really like the sweater. Can I see what it would look like on me? And they could have like maybe a design where it would show you, you know, this is a, you know, nice shirt, whatever. This is what it would look like on you. And then it could even send it to like Swell and people could put it on it. So right. There's a lot of cool things within the e-commerce space. And I would keep tying it to clothing. It could be anything. Right. Just, you know, especially if you're shopping for someone else. Right. It's always nice to have someone to chat with. Right. If you're shopping for mom, if you're shopping for dad, if you're shopping for your sister, girlfriend, wife, whatever it may be, maybe just a little bot to say, hey, like I'm looking for a gift for my wife. You know, can you help me out? And right. It says, okay, like what's her style? You know, is she adventurous? Is she into yoga? Is she like music? Does she want to travel, write, you know, get to know who they are, right, and give you like a personal recommendation. Right. I think like purchasing habits off of recommendations are way higher than just randomly stumbling upon things. So that's what have you guys seen?
Well, we've seen that. I mean, we've seen that kind of stuff where, you know, I think the one thing is it's very new and people don't understand the whole thing, right? Of like, oh, I can just purchase this type of thing, right? So I think that the conversation has to be, you know, it's really about the merchandising of the product, right? I think it's the Amazon-esque like stuff. So like most people that have done their research are going to come and want to buy, right? So impulse buy type things, Sure. You can do those $20 type of things. If you go into a higher realm of, say, $100 type of thing, right? They might engage with the bot, look at it, then go and want to find a little bit of information from their friends, and then come back to buy kind of stuff, right? So yeah. I think on the real true thing is that when you're doing these kind of bot type things, and sales with e-commerce, it's not about your whole store, like we said before. It's really about the micro transaction that you're doing, right? Because because it's not an experience where you want to be like, oh man, I got this item and I got to do this one. It's not that kind of a thing. It's not an e-commerce store. Yeah. It's more on that micro. The additional happens when you do those product upsells, or if you're bundling, like you're doing the upsells or downsells after they've given you your credit card, then that's the kind of stuff that you can then, double your checkout, increase your ROS, your return on ad spend, and your ROI. So if it takes you $1 to get there, maybe that product is a loss leader. The first thing they're doing, like they do free plus shipping type of offers, right? But on that upsell, then they put another one of those cards and it's $6. Well, you just cover your $2 or $1 for the ad kind of stuff, right? So that's, I think, where like the commerce, you're taking those kind of landing pages, companies like ClickFunnels and Lead Pages and all these types of things, and building those into a chat experience. Because I do think not having to fill in the forms and say, yes, I want one of these or two of these, it's nice to have it walk you through. I mean, it's quick and it's easy, and then once you're remembered, then I think that part makes even the transaction happen even faster, because they remember your address, they remember your credit card, and you check out, right? And that's kind of where we see this kind of in that realm,
Well, one thing that really got me with this space is the fact that the AI or chat or bots, the experiences really now are allowing people to interact and engage with businesses anywhere at any time.
Right.
So we're not subject to slouching over a computer and staring at a screen. Right. You can interact like on the train or on the go, or even if I double click my ear thing.
Right.
There's Siri. So that part really got me hooked in the space, and being able to have different experiences. And I was in London over the summer speaking at one of the London AI expos, and I went out into there's a park next to the expo, and there's this massive statue, and the statue had this QR code. And I scanned it, and all of a sudden it triggered, the statue started speaking.
Right. I think I saw that in one of your blog posts.
Like, oh, wow. That's cool. That's like taking the business and really giving it some legs. So with e-commerce space, I think that there's going to be this cool shift back to, brick and mortar places, where instead of just like being a shop where you can buy, it's all like experience driven. You look at on the promenade here, the new Google store, it's got like the Google store, but it's putt-putt golf. Like, how cool is that? Like,
that's awesome.
I don't know if I'm going to buy something from Google, but I'll play putt-putt golf, and then it'll get me in there, and I'll see all the cool Google shit.
Right. Yeah, I think that's where retail is kind of going. I think the experiential type of thing of retail, and today I really don't think it's so much if they have that product in the store, is if they could go in, feel, and touch that product. So I'm a big believer on these micro stores where you have all that product, like Bonobos and some of these other places where you go in there, you try on the clothing. But in 3 days or 5 days, you get that kind of clothing. But you get the experience of a knowledgeable salesperson. They're not really pressuring you, but they're in your best interest to make you look good and say, oh yeah, these pants go with this and they go with that or whatever, right? I think that's kind of where this stuff is kind of going, where you have one-off products and with the free shipping and all this kind of stuff, I think people can experience, and they would like to maybe, like you said, like on that going through the museum thing or the QR code. I mean, you could do that same sort of thing. Like we have got the ability for at food festivals and food trucks and stuff with a QR code or just hashtagging the foods, the business's name, will pull up the menu. So think when you're at a festival, right? You know, if there's these huge lines or these food grids or off the grid or whatever, you know, kinds of stuff. And, you know, you want to try 6 or 7, but when you see a huge line, you're like, ugh, which is the slowest line? Because I'm kind of hungry. I don't want to try it. You know, which is a huge benefit to the merchant because now they're moving 2 times as many people through the line. They're increasing their value, and then people start to spread about it. And then if you are in your office and it's raining and you know that you can do this and these guys are not very tech savvy, you can now bring this tech savviness to them, and then people order, and then as soon as that order is ready, it just pings them, they come and pick it up, or they have a third-party delivery service. So I think that there's lots of potential, I think, in the food space with this. And then, you know, we do enterprise stuff with one of the big movie studios. And what we do is you just can hashtag the movie name and buy the tickets. I mean, you know, kind of stuff like that. And so people enjoy that experience, you know, on that side of things. But that's kind of where I see it. You know, I think that it's so new that people just don't understand how to interact with these bots, right? And I think that one other thing is I think that, you know, there's many different platforms. I mean, I'm sure you see this, right? Where you've got Facebook Messenger as the king of messaging, but you know, there's lots of things where you can do web widgets and things like that where you don't need Facebook. And you know, frankly, their rules are changing. You know, from where a lot of these services used to be app, you know, sort of, you know, app driven, they're going to be page based. So because, you know, they're just getting a lot of spam coming through these things, and they don't want to ruin that experience. So pages are going to have to apply to Google to be able to message to their users, and it won't be like promotional types of things. They got this 24/1 thing coming up. So it's like 24 hours you can send a promotion, and after that, if they don't react in that, you can send them content. I don't know. Have you seen things like that? I mean, in your
Yeah, so we're working on a few of our own little pieces of software to enhance that experience at the moment right now as well. Particularly because a lot of the corporate clients didn't necessarily want to subject all their users to have to log in through Facebook.
Right.
But they did want a messenger experience. So it's kind of like, well, how do we balance the two? So to give you a web widget and things like that, and curate these like beautiful conversations, and then, you know, once we've had a conversation, they know what we're doing. Maybe it's a sales pitch, maybe it's like answering an FAQ. Right. How do you want to continue the conversation? Is it SMS? You know, we can do that with like Twilio and things like that. Is it email? We like email. We can do it. One of our co-founders here was a big part of Mad Mimi during their exit to GoGoDaddy, so we understand email really well. We love the conversion rates outside of email, so it's like Messenger and SMS, but some people just like an email. Right.
I think you do have to communicate to your users where they like it. Like they might want to read, you know, whatever, they're sitting on they're in the bathroom and they want to do on email, you know, they don't want to do Messenger. I mean, it's really one of these things where I think that the app culture is going to change towards the messenger culture, where you know, what's really nice about the web widget type bots is that, you know, the app development isn't there. You can change it a lot quicker. You can make things happen. You can interact with, you know, Alexa and different things, right? I mean, this is really, I think they're cool.
And you don't have to develop on 2 different operating systems.
Right. Exactly.
That's just like, and again, back to the like anywhere, everywhere, anytime, anyone.
Right.
Yeah, just like, you know, our little slogan now is making AI accessible, and you know, through conversation and things like that. But you know, that's what we find is the biggest value proposition towards like bots. Like, make your business successful. You know, you've got Generation Z who, you know, don't even know what Facebook is.
Right. Exactly. I mean,
you know, and obviously not literally, but they're just not using it. And they've capped them off at 13, but they're obsessed with messaging apps.
Right.
and, chatting with their friends and doing big, video, casts, and
Yeah.
staying up really late playing Fortnite with like 10 friends,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you play Fortnite, but my son does.
I've been playing quite a bit with my little brother. Yeah, I was
Okay.
kind of against it at first, but then, started
I'm like,
shooting.
dude, do you kill anybody or you just get killed all the time? Because I'm not, I'm not sure. He's like,
I'm
I kept.
I'm one of those guys that gets killed all the time. I'm just like hiding in like a bush until like someone comes up behind me and like stabs me.
I know.
Kind of addicting.
I know. It is kind of funny. I watch this him play it all the time. I'm like, dude, you've got to be aggressive to go out there. Unless you're going to sit and hide behind a thing, you never do it. My daughter, she's like, always doesn't care. She's all at this thing. But it's funny to see the difference in the two kind of things.
I had this debate with my brother because he's pretty good. He's doing all the building stuff and he's shooting like everybody and racking up some kills. And I'm not. Like I get really excited if I play something in the game. And so I convinced him that it's not about killing. It's about how long you can last.
Right.
And so he's like, but you got like, but I'm getting so many kills. I'm like, but I'm in the like last 20 people standing every game. And he's like, we have this huge debate over it because I suck. And the only way I can beat him is if I can say, the point of the game is to be the last one standing, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Oh, I'm better than you.
It's true. It's awesome. Cool. So, hey, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know that, I'm sure you're kind of busy, but I did want to ask you one thing.
Yeah.
Out of your, so you're pretty, what keeps you sort of in the know of like staying current with things? Is there three kinds that are there, top three books you read or magazines or not even magazines, but websites or things like that keep you kind of current in the space itself? Like, what do you like to do to keep yourself knowledgeable?
I like to just stay involved with. So there's so many like early leaders right now, and I think that if any industry, and especially new tech innovation type of thing, it really needs drivers. There's plenty of technical support and engineers, but really understanding how to drive what the technology is, to like a mainstream audience, and at the end of the day, to bring a product that adds a significant amount of value.
Right.
And understanding where those people are. So there's, I'm good friends with Peter at Swelly, and we chat, once, twice a week. Stefan, who's got Chatbot Life, which is a decent magazine, and blog to be a part of. There's several bot groups on Facebook. And then, one thing that I find actually really good is Apple News.
Apple News.
I look at the AI, stuff that comes in, and they're really making it good as far as like curating content that is relevant to me, based on what I've been reading. So I do like Apple News. It usually spends, the first 2 to 3 hours a day, just kind of reading new articles, stuff that, tech advances that are coming out, look at Crunchbase, see where money is going, understand kind of the landscape.
Right.
I think that's one of the biggest things that you can do is understand like cash flow.
Sure.
Where is it going? You look at this, it's more or less a wild west between, AI and also blockchain right now. And just to really feel out the landscape, what's the market look like? Who's using it? What can it do? But how can I start selling something now, today?
Right.
And create enough breadcrumbs to get to this bigger picture and to be part of, the future that I want to be a part of creating as well. And,
Right. Cool. Awesome. So, Dustin, where can people find out more about you and Botcopy and things like that?
Yeah, sure. Botcopy.com. Our blog is on there and stuff like that. I try to write at least 1 or 2 articles a week.
It's a lot.
We've got a whole staff of writers, so usually it's a little easier for me, but we do get kind of busy sometimes, so don't hold me to that. Um, and then my personal email is dust@botcopy.com, DUST. If anybody wants to get a hold of me, they can just shoot me an email. My LinkedIn is just Dustin Dye, DYE. If you want to connect with me there as well. Yeah, that's
Cool.
That's probably the best.
That's awesome. Well, that's good. Well, I really do appreciate the time you gave, and learned some really cool stuff, explored some new ideas, which is really great. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you actually at the conference that we'll be attending as well. So
yeah, that's a month away. Look forward to seeing you there. Come in Pasadena beforehand. You're kind of right next door. We'll have to grab a beer or something.
Yeah, exactly. So awesome. Great. I appreciate the time, and have a good day.
All right, cheers, man. Take care.
Bye.